When you're actually playing online poker, you're probably worried about getting a bad hand, right? But maybe you should also be worried about Uncle Sam coming in and, I don't know, seizing everyone's money.
Since the first poker game was played online for money in 1998, the industry has exploded into what some estimate to be a $9 to $12 billion industry. Online poker is legal in every state except Washington, but players can't legally collect their winnings. It's a gray area of the law and one that hasn't really been enforced until now. Last week, the Department of Justice froze over $30 million in winnings from nearly 30,000 players, claiming that the assets were, quote, involved in money laundering and illegal gambling offenses. Is the future of online poker in jeopardy? And what's the reaction from the poker community? Shuffle up and deal. It's The Loop.
All right, joining me all the way from Los Angeles to help us make sense of it all, founder and CEO of World Poker Tour, Steve Lipscomb is here. How are you, Steve?
Fantastic.
Did you manage to get your winnings out, or do you even bother with the online stuff now? Do you just buy and sell players?
You know, pretty much I wasn't involved in this one at all, thank heavens.
Okay, well, I'm glad you escaped unscathed, because last week, as I mentioned, the Department of Justice, they froze winnings of about 27,000 online players. Now, this is $34 million worth of winnings. Exactly what legal ground do they have to do this, Steve?
Well, they're the Justice Department, and they think it's illegal.
And that's all they need?
Pretty much they did it because they could. And there's a 1961 act called the Wire Act that says, pretty much for sports betting, if across state lines you wire a bet, you can have money attached. They use that, but have not been willing to test the law simply because it really may not apply to poker at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, poker, supposedly a game of skill, not exactly sports betting. I mean, why hasn't the sites gone after the DOJ for this one?
Well, you know, it's really one of those slippery slopes. These are offshore sites. They haven't come to try and get their money simply because they don't want to come into a U.S. court and all of a sudden be nabbed. So
right.
It really is a game of chicken, and the question is who's going to stop the car first.
Well, Steve, you know, the DOJ went after the banks. Players didn't get their money, but the players remained unscathed. So why is that? Why did they go after the banks instead of the individuals that are actually gambling online?
Well, you can get the banks. Up until recently, you usually could get a hold of a bank. Well, still in this instance, they could go here. These are offshore companies with tremendous resources. So rather than actually take the day in court, go and try to prove that their view of the Wire Act is correct, they simply went after the money because they knew they could get that. And no bank's going to say, no, DOJ, you can't have the money.
Right, sure. No banks are saying no to anything right now. I mean, we own them, so why not? But this affected, like I said, 27,000 players. But I mean, how large exactly is the online poker world? Is this a small percentage that were actually hurt by this bust?
Well, yes, it's ginormous. I mean, it depends on who you talk to, but there are well over 6 million players that are playing online internationally, and just in the U.S., there are millions and millions of people.
Well, so 27K out of a handful of millions, then. Is this getting a lot of attention, or are people saying, whatever, this is part of the game here?
Well, the scary thing is where it's headed. I mean, where are we headed on the slippery slope? So right now, it started with 30 million. A number of years ago, another 20 million was taken for a number of sites that had money that they were putting on television. So the question is where does it end, and when do players start to be affected in what they're doing?
Right. Well, the craziest I get online is a rousing match of Pagel, perhaps. So I'm all right, but for my friends that are sitting there, you know, they're day players. They love this game. What sort of recourse do they have if the DOJ comes in and grabs the money from the bank?
Look, this is a whole huge community. When the World Poker Tour started, this really wasn't around. But now there are a lot of people that are making their living playing poker every day in their living room.
Or losing their livings in their living room.
Well,
either way.
Yeah.
But what can they do, Steve? Can they write a tersely worded email, or are they screwed?
Well, the reality is today they really haven't been hurt. I don't know of people who have not gotten their money out simply because the sites have come in and said, don't worry, your money is safe. And how long that will last, I don't know. What the recourse is, what I do with the online site is not something that can be stopped, but it also is a transaction with an international site, and you know, what can you do? You can't do that much. Probably.
Right. Well, I mean, it's good that the sites were honoring the money for the players. Obviously, again, yeah, Lord knows how long they can keep that up, but I guess this begs the bigger question, which we're almost out of time for, sadly, but I do want to get your thoughts. With the state that this country is actually in, the fact that all these sites have to go offshore, we're not getting any tax dollars from this. People are talking about legalizing weed to bail us out. Why not legalize online gambling? I mean, it's not illegal, is it? Or
Look, it's crazy as can be that anyone's trying to make this illegal. You have to check. I can't tell you whether it's legal or not. The Department of Justice says it is, but I can say that ClubWPT.com, a website we've put together, is a subscription model that nobody questions whether it's legal in the 38 states we provide that in. So you can go and find other alternatives where you can go and you can play, or simply put whatever pressure you can on the government to try and make something make sense, which is let U.S. companies do this. Let us play poker in our pajamas because we deserve it.
I agree, Steve. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you keeping us in the loop.
It's a pleasure.